And that moment where I realized I was world champion, I just fell over, just fell on my back, and just looked up at the sky, and I was like, "Oh my God, oh my God!" I couldn't believe it, and it was a funny thing, you don't. I don't want to sound smug or whatever, but I mean this was really my dream since I was a kid. I idolized Andy Mappel, not because he was a guy that ran world records or won masters or moonbas. It was because he was 6-time world champion. So I wanted to be a world champion.
Hey, what's happening, everyone? Welcome back or welcome to the Water Ski Podcast. This is Matteo and the goal of this podcast is to promote the glorious sport of water skiing. I just finished a day at ski school here in Brescia, in Italy, where we kind of did a little fun tournament, just trying to simulate tournaments here amongst, club members and athletes. We don't know when we're going to resume tournaments in Italy, so we thought, okay, let's try to challenge ourselves, try to stay motivated despite the lack of tournaments. So it was a fun day at the lake, and now I'm back recording the intro for part 3 and episode 42, part 3 of my interview with Freddie Winter. This part is a good one. Freddie and I get deep into some of his recent successes, including his World Championship title in 2017 and the win at the Masters last year. But also we get into pro skiing in general, how that has evolved over the last 3 or 4 years, particularly driven by what's been going on in Europe in recent years. We speak about growth of the sport from the pro side. I mean, it's a great episode. We touch on a lot of things, and I think you guys are going to thoroughly enjoy it. Before we do a bit of advertisement and tell you who the podcast is brought you by, I guess, I just wanted to remind you that USA Water Skiing is doing a crowdfunding to webcast through the Water Ski Broadcasting Company the U.S. Nationals. Water Ski Broadcasting Company, which that gang was a guest here at the Water Ski Podcast, and whom Freddie and I talk about in this part 3. Keep in mind that this interview was recorded in late April. Anyway, they are collecting, they're trying to shoot for $10,000 that they will need to webcast the U.S. Nationals at Bennett's. So if you want to chip in and donate some money, you'll find the link in the show notes, or you can go on GoFundMe.com and look up for 2020 Water Ski Nationals webcast. 2020 Water Ski National webcast, you'll find the page very easily, and you can donate there to help the efforts and enjoy a professionally, fully well-made webcast by the Water Ski Broadcasting Company. Anyway, this episode is brought to you once again by H2O Pro Shop. H2O Pro Shop is the place to get all your water ski equipment with free shipping in the 48 continental United States and also internationally with great international shipping rates. H2O Pro Shop is still shipping daily through the pandemic and always works hard on getting the items you need quickly. Social distance out on the water with some new toys for your boat. You can email them at sales@h2oproshop.com and they'll be happy to help you with recommendations and any questions you may have about their product and the equipment they sell. Also, you can take 10% off your orders directly through the online store with discount code TWSP on all applicable items. Hurry though, because this discount will only last for the weeks you'll hear their name here on the Water Ski Podcast. So you heard it this week. If you need some gear, you may want to go on h2oproshop.com and use code TWSP at checkout. They have skis, wake surfs, wakeboards, and more from the biggest brands in the industry. H2O Pro Shop, founded by skiers, run by skiers, made for skiers. That's h2oproshop.com, 10% off with code TWSP. This episode of the Waterski Podcast is also brought to you by the Flowpoint Method. The Flowpoint Method is a brand new online waterski training program developed by Jenny LeBeau and Marcus Brown, one of the guests of this show, whom I was only 30 minutes ago talking about some recent sets and having him help me dissect some of my recent skiing. I've been skiing well. I kind of want to understand why. And, Jenny and Marcus chipped in and helped me out. And this goes to show how performance in any sport depends on a lot of factors. And water skiing is no short of that. And so Marcus and Jenny really adopted an holistic approach in creating the Flowpoint Method. For those who are truly committed to take their skiing to the next level. Doesn't matter what level you're starting from. They cover technique, fitness, nutrition, mindset. They really take this holistic approach, and they took it in creating the method. And I love it. I think they have the right approach, and that's why I'm collaborating with them on the mindset section of the Flowpoint Method. They have daily and weekly updates, extremely extensive library of videos. I haven't been able to watch them all, really. Instructionals, writings. You can finally remove all the guesswork and get the most out of your time on the water. You can become a member of the Flowpoint Method by going to thewaterskipodcast.com/Flowpoint Method, one word, or you can click on the link in the show notes. Again, thewaterskipodcast.com/Flowpoint Method. Okay, that should do for the intro. Enjoy this third and final part of my interview with Freddie. Freddie's a good pal, and I was really glad to go to the boarding school to do this. I mean, it's always nice to be there, even if I don't have to interview Freddie. But that was a very welcome plus. So enjoy, and stick around for next week for a very special interview. Enjoy. All right, came back from a little lunch. I can't really remember, honestly, where we left off, but I know where I want to start from. 2017, Freddie Winter, world champion.
Yeah, that was the best day of my life.
There you go.
Yeah, that was definitely something. And, there were so many things that went into that because, one of them obviously coming back from an injury that had I destroyed my ankle 13 months before.
Yeah, so 2017, like you're coming back from that injury. That's what we're talking about, exactly, your injury. Yeah.
So I'd run my first 39 right at the end of that year of 2016. So I come back 2017 and, started, moved to the boarding school.
Yeah.
So the start of that season, I said to my mum at the start of the year, I said, look, I don't care. I will care individually, but I don't care if I come dead last at every single tournament this year. This is a Worlds year. I want to win the Worlds. And if I come last at every tournament and win the Worlds, that's fine by me, because that's my life ambition, is to win the World Championships. And so I don't care if the other ones don't mean anything to me. And that included the Masters. I mean, as much as that's a big tournament, the Worlds to me is just above and beyond. World champion is, you don't get better than that, can you?
Yeah, you said in previous interviews that year your sole focus was Worlds.
Sole focus. So, and then also it being in France. And France is a place with a great many wonderful, wonderful ski lakes.
Yeah.
I would wonder why we weren't at those. I'm sure some of the people that organised that tournament, sorry, but that was a bloody awful place to ski. I mean, everyone that skied there knew how awful it was. Maybe it was as bad as Malaysia. I mean, I've no idea why we're comparing Malaysia
Bad
and
front worse.
Yeah, like the two worst places I have skied in, probably ever, are the two places where we've had the last two World Championships. Like, what's that about? Can someone answer me that question? Like, why are we putting the World Championships at the worst places we can possibly find, and for no crowds? We've got to put it somewhere people are going to see it. Well, no one turned up, so. What's that about? Anyway, yeah, it was a strange old year. I mean, from that point where I kind of said that at the start of the year, I didn't really have a good tournament. I think I barely made the podium coming back in. I mean, I think I made the podium in the first tournament back in Latrobe, and then after that, I kind of struggled to get on the podium. I think I even missed your tournament, missed the San Gervasio tournament for injury.
Yeah,
because I came back and then I did Masters, didn't ski well there, and then 1 week later, I was in 2 weeks later, I went to Mexico, and I went to do drove 14 hours with Benny Stalabar up to Louisiana to do a tournament at Bennett's, and first round, boy 5 at 41, blow the tail, hurt my ankle again. Same ankle, same crash, not as bad. Was flying home back to England 3-4 days later, and went to see the specialist again, same guy, and he goes, yeah, we need to do a scan on this. So I get it was sore. I was hobbling around on it, but it wasn't too bad. Had obviously not skied since. And then the guy goes to me, he phones me later that day after I got the tube home, and he goes, yeah, you need to go back in the boot. I'm like, what? He goes, you need to go back in the walking boot. And I'm like, no, I got out of that boot,
right?
probably 8 months prior, but it was not sound dramatic, but it was like a bloody cage, it's horrible. You hobbling around, you're like an invalid.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to go back in the boot. I'm like, oh my God. So he said, you just got to make sure there's no pressure on it. So in the end, I didn't ski for about 35 days. But I was, again, coaching wherever I could, and I was in the gym, and I got my right leg, I couldn't do anything on, I wasn't allowed to. My left leg, never stronger. One leg, pistol squats, all that sort of stuff. Couldn't go on the bike, no cardio, nothing. But I got that one leg. I was doing squats all day on it. I had my crutches and was doing these, just
assisted squats. Yeah.
So I felt good there, and I got back to skiing 2 days before the pro event at Thorpe, and made the final at Thorpe. It was halfway down 10.25. I think after that I had 1 month. So pretty much that would have been.
Was that the year that we shot the video with Adam? 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
But it was I started skiing 4 days prior to that day.
Right.
Having taken 35 days off. So that would have been. I'm trying to remember. That was about the 20th of July, and then I had about a month and a half until the Worlds. So I had 45 days until the Worlds, and I hadn't skied in 35 days, whatever. I'm like, okay. But weirdly, it didn't stress me. I feel like it would have stressed me more now. It didn't. So I go and just basically move to Oxford, you know, with Steve, and I'm camping there, staying in a tent, getting rained on every night, bloody cold, but having a great time, good group of people there, and Steve just couldn't have been better. Couldn't have been more accommodating. Come ski, I'll take you whenever you want. There was days where it was pissing down with rain, and I had only, I wanted to have my second set of a day, and then he'd been out the boat and someone else was coming. He'd run down the dock and jump in the boat because he wanted to drive me. Just next level.
Yeah.
And I started skiing really well, and I'm like, man. And then the Sunday before the Worlds, so I think I was leaving on a Tuesday or something, Wednesday. The Sunday before the Worlds, I said to Steve, I was skiing really good. I was running 41 a lot. I said to Steve, if the World Championships was today on this lake or on any flat lake, I would win. The problem is that it's on that lake, and that's the stupidest lake in the world to have a World Championships on. And we're not going, it's going to be a battle against conditions and against competitors, but mainly conditions.
Yeah.
So, but we'd been roughing the water up, Steve had been, we'd been going real fast, we'd been making it as rolly as possible, so I was really well conditioned, and I felt as prepared as you could do going to that tournament. Especially it was cold there in France, unseasonably cold for early September. But it was cold in England, that time of year, and I had, I was sort of ready for that. I was living outside. I was in a tent. I had been for 2 or 3 weeks.
So in a sense, were you in that place that you told me about? I don't know, a couple of hours ago, whenever that was, when you told me, I want to make sure that when I go to the dock at a tournament, I've done everything I could possibly do. Yeah. Were you in that situation?
Oh, more than I ever had before.
Okay.
And when I tell you, to a stupid degree, where I I ate salmon or chicken, sweet potatoes, and eggs.
Yeah.
And salad and avocado. And that's I ate the same meal every day. Like it was stupid. And I was trying to lose a little bit of weight. And I mean, I didn't have a beer for I don't know how long, and didn't have like no chocolate, nothing. I mean, I was all in 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and so I turned up at the Worlds and did the first round, and it was crap.
That's what I hear.
It was really crap, but I felt that if I turned up to ski on that day, having not done what Steve and I had done at Oxford, I would have freaked out. But we'd done a good job, so I went out there and I was like, okay, I can, this is horrible, but I ran the 3 at 39. I need to run it. It was funny. I need to run 38:11 to make the final. So 14 off the dock, huge tailwind. It was really windy, big head tailwind. Anyway, long story short, I ran 11 towards the dock, and I cheer like I won the World Championships. I was so relieved to make the final. Yeah. Run 3 at 39, and then I'm sort of sat like, third to last, fourth to last.
Because that's one of the things maybe some of the audience doesn't understand about the Worlds. You came off of 2 Worlds of third place, so you clearly are somewhat in contention, right? But there's no way around the fact that you gotta make into the final, and that isn't easy at the Worlds. No matter where they are,
especially when they continue to put them in these ludicrous places.
No, of course, but I would say even in general, like for Worlds, the first thing is that you gotta make the final.
You gotta make the final,
and that's for everyone. So
it's really tricky, and there was great skiers who deserved to make the final that year, who didn't make it. John Travers, Steve Neveu, Benny Stalabauer, guys that would they're just going to make a final. Yeah, you don't even need to think about it. And then they got screwed by conditions. Benny didn't even run his 12. This is a guy that podiums at Moomba often and always makes the final at Moomba. This is a hard place, and Benny didn't run his 12. I mean, it's like Neveu, great skier in bad conditions, didn't make it. Like farcical. So. Make it through the final. And by the way, in the preliminary round, I was top seed. I was number 1 ranked skier in the world earlier that year on the world ranking list. So I was last out. So I knew exactly what I needed to get. And you go, oh, bloody hell, last out in a world championships. That is, that's tricky. I mean, obviously there's to make the final only, but like you don't have to go win it. But I mean, felt a little bit of pressure. But so get to the final. And I mean, I just woke up that morning, and they'd moved us super early. They'd moved us it was meant to start at 9. It moved us to 8. So it was weird too. And so I had to get up really early and eat and get all that sort of stuff prepared or whatever. And went out and skied, and it was a horrible, grey, cold day, and I ran. The score to beat was Will when I went out. 4.5 at 10.75. And
so you were third last, fourth last, something like that?
So after me, it was Will, then me, and then it was Marek Mlinik, it was Nate, and then it was Brando. Yeah. So I was fourth to last. And kind of knew I had to get a full 5 to take the lead and ideally run it, then go at 10.25. Come into buoy 5, and I'm like, just don't fall. Don't fall. And kind of like safety turned and got out the exit gates, really happy. Run 2 at 10.25 on the way back. And I mean, it was a good 2 because like offside, buoy 1, rolly as crap conditions. And I'd fallen at that we had the European Championships there previously, and I'd fallen at that buoy 1 at 38, at 11, 2 years prior. Yep. But I turned 1 and got around 2, held the slack. And okay, well, don't think that's going to win it, but I think it's going to be a runoff. So I see the other guys go out. Marek, didn't do it. Nate went down at 12, and I'm like, oh my god, right. Well, I was freezing cold. Yeah, because it was horrible. And I, Steve Sopp, team captain, and Mark Beard, and another guy like giving me their jackets, and I was there, and I had a woolly hat on and trying to stay warm because I had a runoff. But I was just spent. I couldn't have done it. I was freezing. Yeah. Shaking, shivering, nervous as well. And so then Brando goes out, and he's run his 11 going away, and he comes back at 10, at 39. And if he runs it, he's going to come back in. He's a lefty.
Very highly possible he does
Very
too.
good chance. of getting 2, and then we've got to go off. And I know I didn't. I'm not saying I knew I was spent, but I was like, I'm going to need to do something because I'm freezing cold, and this is hard.
Right.
So he gets a good 1, good 2, and I'm watching this, going, this pass right here is the biggest pass of my life, and I'm not even skiing it. And Brando, great 1, good 2, gets 3, like a pretty average 3, and the handle's just getting away from it at 4. And it was actually, I mean, separately, but pretty cool move from him. He could have S-turned 4 and got 4th and got 4th place at Worlds.
Yeah.
With a full 4, and he just throws the handle. He's like, whatever, he could have. So he got 3.5. He's like, I'm not going to win, so I don't care if it's 4th or 5th, and actually moved down to 5th.
Interesting.
And that moment where I realized I was world champion, I just fell over, just fell on my back, and just looked up at the sky, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, I couldn't believe it, and it was a funny thing, you don't. I don't want to sound smug or whatever, but I mean this was really my dream since I was a kid. I idolized Andy Mappel, not because he was a guy that ran world records or won Masters or Moonbas. It was because he was six-time world champion. So I wanted to be a world champion, and my impression is that you're defined by Will Asher, 2-time world champion, Thomas Gaspari, 2-time world champion. These guys are the greats, and there's been other skiers that are maybe not as good as them, but nearly as good as them. But they never won a world championships, and so they aren't seen as the same way. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm doing this to be considered great or nothing like that, but I mean, that was my aim. That's a big deal for me. Yeah. So I did it, and so it was a big sort of blur. And the cool thing that I'm really happy I did now, which was kind of cool, was everyone's like kind of jumping around at me, and I'm really and being super friendly. But I took a moment. I wandered off. It was really weird. The start dock was in this kind of like, because this river, whatever stretch of water, was not built for water skiing. So the start dock was honestly like a 10-minute hike from where you drove in, with your bag and stuff. So I wandered off around a corner and just sat there by myself for like 5 minutes, just taking it in and going, okay, this is a moment, and like don't let it. I mean, it sounds really weird. I don't know, but like, just take a moment to just take this in and enjoy it before people kind of like, before I kind of get distracted by everything.
Before the noise.
Yeah, exactly. So, and man, I mean, like, there's never been a better feeling than that. And I can honestly say that, and it helped because then I went to, Europeans the following weekend, and I won that, and I won it comfortably. Like, I won by 3 boys. And incidentally, I'd won the world championships by, I don't know, Willie ran 5. That's right. So I won that by 3 boys. Won the next Europeans. I won that, and then I went to. Well, in the middle, I'd gone to another pro tournament and run 41 like a lot, which people were surprised. Oh yeah, I mean, he ran it a lot like that weekend. Maybe it was weird. And I'm like, well, I've been running it in practice. I hadn't missed it in practice for a long time. I was skiing really, really good. And then Malibu, I won that. So I won every event, having been crap for the first, 3/4 of the year. I then won 4 events in a row, 2 of them where everyone was, and the other ones with a pretty solid field too.
So, you've been listening to this podcast long enough. So, my question would be now, how was the first day, the first 2 days, the first week? And obviously, I'm assuming for you it was like Stoke, but then there was another tournament and another tournament and another tournament. But at the same time, you said, all I care about was the World Championships.
Yeah, it was all bonus. And I mean, I nearly didn't go to that tournament the following weekend, but it made sense. Yeah. I was with Manon in France, like, I'm there, I'll go. And it was great. I'm really happy I went. And, Nico, the guy that runs the tournament, we went there last year together. Yeah. Nico and Sylvia, it's a great place to ski, and they're good, good people. And I'm happy I went, but I nearly didn't.
No, I understand that. I mean, it seemed like the objective of the year was there, like the Worlds. But I guess I'm more interested about your own, feelings towards it. Like, it sounded like you didn't have too much time to think about it because you had back-to-back tournaments. But at a point, you must have sat down and thought, I'm world champ. You know, like
Oh, dude, no. Trust me, I took my time to enjoy it because I mean, like, I didn't ski that week. I turned up at the Fungleys tournament that Friday, so I was wrong. Europeans were 2 weeks later. The Fungleys tournament was started on the following Saturday, so I had 5 days. I turned up and had a practice set the evening before, skied really well, and then went out and skied as well as I can for the next 2 days for that tournament.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's just say I wasn't exactly on an athlete's diet those weeks.
No more salmon.
Yeah, no more salmon. I mean, I went to the bakery the next day and I just went, I'm going to have one of everything. I mean, I'm a slob on my own. I'm disgusting. I mean, I like all the bad food, so it's kind of hard for me to stay on the straight and narrow, which I tend to do. But I went to that, little French bakery the next day and I was like, yeah, I'll have that one with the strawberries, that one with the chocolate, and that one with the lemon, and I want them all, the big ones. And I sat there and ate them like a pig, and that was my lunch. Yeah. So I wasn't, I really enjoyed it, and I felt like the pressure was off. So, yeah, and then all those tournaments lined up, but it was awesome, and I was really happy because I was being successful. But the only one I really cared about was the Worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nice. I won the Malibu Open. That's cool, but fantastic tournament, but Worlds is
the Worlds.
One, and honestly, I mean, sounds weird, but I woke up every day for the next 6 months, and I was like, I'm world champion. I couldn't. There is nothing in my life that I would change. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm so happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
well, I can understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it was. I just felt so content that and it was a fun time. Like, had good people around me, and it was good. It was really, really good. I couldn't have been any happier.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But that's the funny thing, that I heard a story about, I think it was Bradley Wiggins, or it was another British cyclist, but before they got really big, but like won an Olympic gold and then just lay in bed for 6 months and was just like, well, I don't know what to do next. But I didn't have that. I was motivated. I still skied. I was skiing well. Then I hurt my ankle again.
Third time.
Yeah, like at the end of that year, and had to be off again a month and a half in a boot. So I was like, at that point, I'm like, I got to change my boots.
Yeah.
So I after the last time, the boots I was on, like I pulled them off my ski, off the Velcro, and threw them. And just went, never again. Just because I got a sore ankle, and I can't, obviously it doesn't line up. And I was so lucky because I didn't hurt it. I was, luck gave me that sort of 45 days before the Worlds, whereas I'd had 35 days before when I didn't ski, and I'd kept sort of hurting it. That year I even hurt it the week before I went to Moomba and didn't ski for a week. So like just little tweaks. I just thought, you know what, I need to change my boots. So that was like the start of the next year was, that was a harder year. 2018 won your tournament, won the Fungleys tournament, but the rest of the year was crap.
Yeah.
And didn't ski very well. Messing with different skis or whatever. But the whole time I was world champion, but I wasn't taking joy in that anymore. I was like, well, shit, are my best days behind me? I don't want to come across as too vulnerable or weird, but it is definitely true that when you turn up to the Malibu Open or the whatever, and you hear him go, and here's Freddie Winter, the world champion, and you've skied crap for the last 3-4 tournaments, you go, I'm not worthy of that title. Because that's old Freddie, that's not current. And everyone knows that. And so, I was good then, but I'm not deserving now. And that's going back to, athletes being insecure. I mean, you're only as good as your last tournament. You're only as good as how you feel. And I didn't feel good enough. So I was miserable about not being, about not skiing that well. So that kind of sucks. So 2018, like not my best year, which but then what was cool was even at the end of the year, I just took a bit of a break and I was like, well, okay, let's find a ski I like, because that whole year I got rid of the ski that I really liked, which I won the Worlds on, didn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
couldn't be made. The factory that was being made in France was not they didn't want to use it anymore, whatever, I don't know. And so I couldn't find a ski that I liked with the same brand. I couldn't really find a ski I liked with any brand. I was trying them all.
Yeah.
Ended up on, I was on what I was on for 18, and it was good, but it didn't feel at home. It didn't feel like, okay, I have a full connection with this ski. So I kind of decided to spend the end of 18. Let's find a ski I like, and then I can really like. I'm a believer, in which you wouldn't think so from the way that I've danced around on 17 different skis, throughout. I've won a pro event on 4 different brands of skis, which is kind of ridiculous, stupid. But I do believe that consistency is important. But I just, through circumstance, it's always been, oh, well, that ski doesn't exist anymore, or whatever. So ended up on the D3 at the end of the year, and I didn't expect to like that NRG. Hadn't heard. I had a friend of mine who I trust, and he said he didn't like it, so I'm probably not going to like it that much. I went out and skied and I really liked it. Okay. And then got on that, and so start of 2019, I'm on the new ski that, and working with D3 about like maybe becoming official. Yeah. Facebook official.
Engaged.
There you go. So that was, and that worked out, and then I found that consistency on the ski, and it's the ski that I really like and I'm still on, and I think that really is important. And I found that, then I finally won the Masters, which was really cool. And I, found success throughout the whole year, and number 1 on the elite list, which no one really gives a shit about, but I did. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything because it's just a rolling list, which, but I got to I want to say at the end of the year, by the end of the year, I want to be number 1. And I got to the end of the year and I was number 1, which is pretty cool. And yeah, second at Worlds, didn't quite get it, run off for the first, and that's miserable. I saw Glenn Campbell in the winter, and I said, I think one of the first things I said to him was, "Hey Glenn, from one person who lost the runoff for the World Championships to the last person that did it, come second." Because Glenn against Will in 2005, for Will and him both ran 3 at 10.25 in China, and they had a runoff. Yeah, and Glenn lost, and that's rough. That's really rough. Joel Howley, who won it, was against 2 guys that had won it before. Will twice, won through a runoff, and me once, the previous time. And Joel won. And, so at least the 2 of us that lost had one. Yeah. I don't know, like, that's rough. It's rough to lose. I mean, because, again, two is better than 1. And, I'd love to be, on the same. Thomas and Will both have 2 world championships, and I'd love to be a fellow 2-time world champion, and I missed it by a little bit, by just a little bit, and that kind of hurt. But yeah. So yeah, we're jumping through things because that's how this podcast works. But I'd be curious to hear, when did Mastercraft come into the picture? Because they're obviously a huge sponsor of yours, and Yeah. When did that come in? Was it after you won Worlds? Were you already sponsored by the time you won Worlds? Oh yeah. No, way before that. Mastercraft has been great. Kind of a funny story.
How did that come about?
So I got a hold of Arne Klau's email. Arne is big deal at Mastercraft. He's my boss, and a guy that's been really supportive of me and great with me over the years. I got a hold of his email somehow, I think from Jody, before the World Championships in 2013. And I've said I'm pretty bad at asking for sponsors and stuff like that. It's like, I kind of find it awkward. Hey, you should pay me, and you should. Right. That's an awkward thing, I feel like. Yeah. But I was like, screw it, let's do it. I'm on the back foot here, so I got to be aggressive. So I said, it was when they just released the Pro Star.
I love that analogy. Yeah. I'm on the back foot, so I have to be aggressive.
Yeah, you got to jump in sometimes. So I sent him an email, and I feel like I spent some time on it. And I was, the gist of it was, hey, listen, you've got this new boat that's amazing. I've skied behind it. Now, I'm the next guy, and you want to get a hold of me before everyone else does. And this is a good matchup, so, because I'd heard rumors that they were looking for someone, but,
Well, and you ran your first 41 behind that boat.
Mm-hmm. A year later.
Oh, a year later,
yeah.
Right.
So this was in 13. And so I get an email back, and it basically says, I feel like it was one line. It said, "We'll talk after Worlds." And then, but I mean, which was, you know, who the hell was I? I was just some guy that comes sixth at a California Pro-Am.
No, I get it.
You know,
I get
like,
it. But it's a cool event to receive, you know?
Who is this idiot, you know, telling me, oh, yeah, you should sponsor me? I mean, I was lucky to get a response.
Right.
So, so then after Worlds, I come third, and I get an email. Hey, you know, let's talk. They come to the factory, and I was just stoked. And I went, you know, talking to people that that, you know, are just super helpful and wonderful. Jay Bennett. I'd never met him before, but I met him in end of February of the following year, 14, and I was supposed to go to see the Mastercraft guys right at the start of March, so like a few days afterwards. And Jay sits me down and he's like, "Hey, you're Freddie, right? You're the guy that we're going to give our $20 million sponsorship to." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And but he sort of sat me down. He gave me a sort of rundown. Hey, you know, you should maybe think about, you know, talk this way. Don't think, you know, like just kind of, this is what they're about. Maybe think, you know, give a good impression of yourself. Yeah, so that was really nice because Jay knows those guys really well. And Jay's been just amazing throughout. He's fantastic. Jay and Anne. Yeah, we both big fans of Bennett's.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, how can you not? You know, I mean, just good people, insane track record. I mean, how can you not be?
They built that facility and they love people skiing it.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, just, you know, at least for me personally, whenever Jay talks, I'm gonna listen.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
I remember,
like I could go in very opinionated about something. Yeah. And sort of have an idea that he's not going to be thinking on the same lines as I do. Yeah. But he's one of the few people that I tend to listen to people, but he's one of the few people that I'm going to go in and listen and trust whatever he's going to say over my opinion. Yeah. And then we'll discuss it, and I might not come out of it the same way, but certainly I'm going to open my ears. You know?
Was it last year at the Malibu Open when we were sharing a room, and then, like, I don't know, we were supposed to meet or something happened, and I was like, oh, hey, like, I missed you for that, like, hour, and you're like, no, Jay Bennett said we're gonna go watch the jump together, and I went to watch the bloody jump with Jay Bennett.
Oh, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, fair enough.
Kidding me? So what happened was, like, Dane came to me and was like, Janina, I kind of need someone on the shore for a jump. I think it should be you, blah, blah, blah. So I go and Janina asked me, I go and watch her jump, and as I'm walking back to the dock at Trophy, I see Jay walking towards the shore where you watch jump, and I knew that he had like 3 or 4 women jumpers there. Mm-hmm. And he basically said, boy, you now come and watch some jumps with me. And I was just freaking stoked, you know, and I went with him. I was sitting like maybe a couple of meters back, and all I was doing was observing the master at work, you know, like just like, what was he looking at? What was he thinking? And then he made me part of the thinking process, you know, mm-hmm. Like he was telling to me, this and that. And I was like, bloody honored, you know, so honored, you know, it was super cool. So
he's a legend.
Yeah, that's the status, you know.
Jay, I think I made a good impression of Jay. I mean, I remember him being just completely like sort of in like scratching his head, as in this guy has got some sort of head issue, but in maybe a positive way. When I finished my exams at Monroe, I didn't have a car.
I know this story.
Yeah, and this was like, so 2 or 3 months after I had met Jay for the first time. I don't think I'd seen him in the meantime, or maybe I had. Maybe I'd gone down for a weekend here or there. But so I didn't have a car, and the rental seemed ridiculously expensive. And so I'm an Englishman, and also I didn't get my driver's license until I was like 21 or 20, I forget. And I think I was 21, and so I'm like, well, I'm gonna hit the bus,
right?
You know, and also I'd done, you know, when I was 19 with some friends from school, I did a Greyhound trip across America from LA to Miami. You know, like I did it properly. Yeah. Over 3 weeks or whatever. It was, you know, it was quite a, you know, I felt like I had an affinity with the Greyhound bus. You know, it was fun. So.
Stayed at the Blue Dog Cafe in Lafayette, Louisiana, before you even knew what that was.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Blue Moon Saloon.
Blue Moon Saloon. Yeah, sorry, not like that. Blue Moon Saloon.
And so I went to the Greyhound, Greyhound place, and then I don't know if I feel like I don't know if I'd been stupid or what, but anyway, it was going to take me, instead of 3.5 hours or 3 hours to drive from Monroe to Zachary, where Bennett's is, it was going to take me 12 hours. I drove 3 hours in one direction, waited there for 4 hours, and then 3 hours, and then another 2 hours, and then the final bit.
Like an insane trip to get from
a whole day when I should. I mean, I don't know. I should have just rented the car, but I had the mentality of a college student, and I really, I didn't want to take any money from my parents that didn't need to be spent. I was like, well, I've got a whole day. I've skied loads yesterday. I don't need to do anything today, so I'll just get the bus. And I kind of regretted it because there were some sketchy characters around one of the station. I didn't really like it, but yeah. So I texted someone that I knew that was working at Bennett's to come pick me up, and he had to ask permission from Jay because he had something to do that evening. He's like, do you mind if I go? It was Ryan Hinkle, and he came and picked me up from the station, which would have been, I don't know how far away, and Jay heard that I'd got a Greyhound bus from Monroe, and we're just like, what's wrong with this guy? But he said to me, he goes, Freddie, if you're ever gonna get the Greyhound bus again, you call me, I'll come pick you up. You're not doing that. You're not doing 12 hours. But I think it made a good impression of him because I think he realized that I was quite serious about water skiing.
Yeah.
He maybe didn't realize that I was just tight to buy a rental car.
Yeah,
but I mean, yeah, he's like, so, and I think, going back to the Mastercraft thing, I think that helped me with Mastercraft because I think that Jay, who, knows the guys at Mastercraft really well, I think he was kind of like, yeah, this guy's a bit mental. I mean, you might want to get a hold of him because he's going to train really hard and he's going to get stupid Greyhound buses so he can go train for 5 days.
Right.
And, so I'd sort of gone to the factory and then there was, always budget stuff and I whatever. But in the end, I ended up signing with Mastercraft at the start of 15. Right at the start of 15. And that was just awesome. Because I remember going back to the very start of the whole deal was when I was 10 and 11, we had Mastercraft boats at the lake where I was skiing at. And so I remember saying to one of the guys at skiing, it's George Mailing, who you know.
Yeah.
I remember saying to him, I'd like to get sponsored by Mastercraft boats. And he's like, Mastercraft boats? Why would they ever sponsor you? You're not even a 3-eventer. Just of course they weren't going to sponsor me. But I remember thinking I made it. I did it. And someone told me that I was the first non-American or non-continental American to be sponsored by the factory Mastercraft. There was a lot of people that were sponsored from dealers in their countries, but I was the first, maybe the first Brit or something that I remember thinking that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it has been awesome, not to be a big sort of shameless promoter of my sponsors, but they have been great to me. And I, did a photo shoot the other week with all the guys and Freddie Krueger and Karen Truelove, two legends of the sport. That's cool to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mastercraft's done a lot of cool stuff for me, but one of the things is the relationship with Freddie Krueger. I mean, you and I both pretty nerdy on the ski side of things. I mean, I remember a conversation we had. I remember it really well in 14 at the Malibu Open, and I hadn't skied well. I don't think you'd skied well, and we just saw Freddie Krueger about to go jump, and we're just like, wow, that's a professional.
Yeah.
That's a real skier. That's how we want to aspire to be.
Yeah, yeah.
But so it's worked out. And then with me being here at the boarding school and I drive the boat every day, I ski the boat every day, and that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So no, I mean, first of all, I don't think you're shamefully promoting. If a sponsor has been good to you, you should say it. But I think I'm interested in what ways. Take along financials for a second. How has that impacted your skiing, your ski career?
Well, I think that what's quite cool with the Mastercraft deal is it's quite a small team. So I feel like when we're all sort of it's a cliche, but it's more of a family kind of feel.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of having 40 people on a satellite kind of thing who are
There's like a handful, or
there's a little group, and here's one thing that was really cool was and this really meant something to me because you have people that they do support you financially, and I've been very lucky with Mastercraft, and they've been great with me. And there was that first half of 2017. I came back to America. Yeah, that's right. I came back to America for like a couple of weeks in August for the Herbs Cup thing.
Yep.
And like right at the start of August, I was here, and I got a phone from Arne at Mastercraft, and he's like, we were chit-chatting, whatever, about, I can't remember what it was about, but I said to him, hey, Arne, like, I know my results haven't gone well this year, but like, it'll turn around, and, thanks for having faith in me or whatever. The same thing what I did with the captain of the team when I was like 11 years old, but I kind of felt like, well, this guy's, he's looking after me, and I'm not really holding up my end of the bargain so much because my results are crap, and I'm basically on the team to go and win tournaments. I'm not there directly selling boats very often. So, and he goes, yeah, don't even worry about it. Like he's like, Freddie, you're doing great. Like we're not worried. Just no pressure from us at all, and you'll be. We're not stressed about it.
That's
great.
So cool.
And I'm really happy I was able to pay that back to to people that support me, that Mastercraft, that I was able to go and win a world championships and promote through that. And it's really that's what I like about it. It's a relationship where it's like they're not putting pressure on us. They're not going, oh hey, if you don't come top 3 on the elite list, then we're going to drop you. It's like, oh, you're injured, you had a bad year, or whatever, like things didn't work out your way. Yeah, it's a shame, but this is a long-term relationship, and we're not going to drop you because we're mad at you. We hired you because we like you, and so don't screw that up. But don't stress about stuff that really it'll come around.
Yeah, they understand that performance is what it is. Like it's not always going to be like super top, like, but if they decided to invest, it's because they believe in you and what you do and what you're capable of doing. I mean, and I think that's a very admirable thing, I mean, I'm trying to think back to my original question, that must be putting you in a position to train and do the things that you believe are right, as opposed to if they were to say, no, you got to be doing this and this, and you can't go below this, and all of that. That puts you in a different mental state, getting ready for a world championship or a Masters or a full season of pro tournaments, which we should talk about. Like over the last 2 or 3 years, there have been more and more tournaments. Yep. And I know you've been very stoked about that.
Love it. Let's keep it coming. 52 weeks a year, please.
Yeah, exactly. But I was just curious to hear what effect it had on you.
But that's something I've been very lucky with. I've never felt with any of my sponsors that they're kind of breathing down my neck. I've been with a few different ski companies and some more formally than others. Like the current deal I have with D3 is the best deal in terms of it being a proper sponsorship. Like I'm getting a check every month. That's super awesome. That's great. But I've never really felt there's any pressure from anyone else. I mean, I'm my own biggest critic, and I'd like to think that I don't really find excuses in things. I tend to, put it all on myself. And I've never really gone to a tournament and gone, oh, I've got to do this. I want to do this because I want to show that I'm a good slalom skier, that I'm as good as I can be. But I've never gone, oh my God, And the only time I really thought about it for a second was at that moment when Arne phoned me, and I had just been thinking, oh God, they must kind of think I'm a bit of a loser. Like I broke my ankle last year. I've been crap ever since. But they might wonder if I'm not going to make it back.
Right.
And then it was just immediately when I brought it up to him, to Arne, like it was immediately just expelled. So that was very cool. Yeah. Very cool.
So, all right, let's use the amount of tournaments really to maybe talk about a little bit 2019, right? So I know you've said it before. Obviously, I am directly involved with that. But, over the last few years, there have been more tournaments in Europe, which then sparked a couple of extra tournaments in the US. And if memory doesn't fail me, for men's slalom, you had, 12 or 13 events last year?
Yeah, and there was scheduled to be even more this year. There was going to be 6 or even 7 in Europe. I heard right before this whole thing struck, the coronavirus, that there was going to be a 7th. Yeah, I forget, and maybe in Holland or something. I forget. But
it was Holland, and then France was talking about one. Yeah, no, I mean there's certainly a resurgence of number of pro tournaments.
Yeah, so we had 6 last year, and it's 6 in 5 weeks, which was unbelievable. And I mean, look, when you finally get to doing your podcast, Matteo, then that's when whoever is interviewing needs to turn that around on you and say, okay, tell us about how you created or re-energized, or whatever the word is, the European tour, because it never was a European tour really. I mean, there was like 2 or 3, but there's never been six tournaments on consecutive weekends, and some in midweek. We had a situation last year where Geraldine at Lacanau couldn't fit her tournament on a weekend, so she did it midweek.
Yeah,
that is just amazing. Because it was between
hours.
It was Masters Lake 38, and then there was like maybe a week off.
All right.
And then it was then we went France, Italy, Spain,
Italy.
Yeah,
Spain, Italy,
Italy, France, England.
Yeah,
and just amazing. It's just amazing that we got to that point, and it makes you feel more valuable if you've got 12 lakes, 13 lakes to go to every year, plus your Europeans, plus your World Championships, and like you're doing something that's worthwhile, than 8.
Yeah.
Because you just go, okay, well, as much as I want to win every single one, if I mess up one, then I got another one.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, I think that I'm very lucky to be a men's slalom skier, because we have that. Let's be honest. Every other discipline in water skiing is shrinking.
Yeah.
Is shrinking.
Yeah.
And we're expanding. Now let's see where we are if this whole, recession comes along and really buggers up all the good stuff that's been happening, people wanting to invest in tournaments and stuff. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed, no. But at least up to this point, the last 3 or 4 years, there's been more and more tournaments every year for men's slalom skiing. Women's events are static, if not going down. Women's jump events, static, I mean, definitely going down.
Yeah.
Trick events, there's like 2 or 3 a year on a world's year. And then women's slalom, like, and men's jump, like there's 4 or 5, I mean, whatever it is. So, but there's a reason for that. And I think, we've talked about it before. There's a reason is that, rightly or wrongly, the men's slalom skiers, that we're so competitive that if someone puts up, $5 and a stick of gum, we're going to be there. You're going to have 15 men's pro slalom skiers trying to win that stick of gum and $5.
Yeah.
And that's stupid because it diminishes our value. But it also, that $5 and a stick of gum might be $10 the next year and might end up being a 12 grand tournament. So that attitude of, all right, let's go and compete, which, some of the jumpers have told us is really stupid over the years, has, and I agree to some extent, has sort of ended up with like all of these small tournaments, and yours was a small tournament to start with.
Yeah.
We sat around a table in Canada, 2014, and you said, Freddie, you're going to come to my tournament. And I'm like, well, I've got school. And you're like, Freddie, don't be so stupid. You got to come to my tournament because this could end up growing, and then we might have more tournaments in Europe. And I was like, yeah, okay, mate. Booked my flight, went there, had a great time. Obviously, we know what that turned into.
You and Benny.
Yeah, me and Benny.
Amongst the first ones that really supported it.
The two of it was you, me, and Benny at that dinner table in a Buffalo Wild Wings in Calgary. But yeah, like the more we turn up, the more we can grow, and then suddenly we've got. I think last year there was only one event that wasn't full elite. So we had Keith's event, which was not the
was the second step. Yeah,
second step. It wasn't the full like top level, and it's on its way, and it will be.
Yeah,
and it is this year if it ends up happening at whatever time. But and the rest were full elite events, and that's why. And people go, what's cool about that is people go, well, if I put up, I've got to put up this amount of money, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But for a pro, for a group of professional athletes to turn up, to get 10 of them or 12 of them, 15, 20, it's not that much money. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not grateful. I mean, but you can go, oh, well, if I can get to that amount of money, and if I, find a few sponsors or whatever, then I'll probably get all the best guys in the world and I can have them on my lake. Yeah. And that's pretty cool, I think. I mean, honestly, when I was a kid, I could go, well, not that I've been able to raise any money, but well, we're not that far away from having all the pro men right here. That's pretty awesome, and that's why it's growing. And sadly, hopefully, we'll see growth in all the other areas. And I mean, who knows where we're going to be after this? But I think that's that's where it's really exciting to be a men's slalom skier right now.
Yeah.
That and the level of competition being so high.
The level of competition is insane.
Yeah.
So and amidst all of these tournaments, because there were again a lot of tournaments last year, you said you had your most consistent year in your career, which is interesting given that you were able to prove it in a season with a lot of tournaments, right? Because consistency is only as good as the amount of tournaments that you have, right? Yeah. So talk about last season a little bit. Anything that jumps out, anything that stood out for you?
Well, I mean, the highlight was winning Masters for sure. And I got in the car on the Friday in your car actually. I was borrowed your car. Yeah. I got in the glorious Golf and made that trip up, and I was just like, man. I mean, I kind of like not to sound negative, but I have this strange deal with Masters where I am still bitter about 2015, which we've talked about. Where less and less so because it as it fades into the back over the horizon, and but I don't I've never the only time I've ever skied well there, I think I won,
right,
and very contentious, cool and whatever. But I mean, the only time I ever really skied was the only time I made 2 finals there in like 5 years before last year. And the one year I did well enough to win, and the other year I messed up and I missed 38, and that was 2018, and I came 4th. So last year I'm like, man, this is such a hard tournament, and it's just it's a rough place to ski. It's really tricky, but it means so much. It is an important bloody tournament. So it's not like, oh, I just won't go. I'm scared of it. No, I've got to go. I've worked to qualify for it. So I end up, first round, you're like, I had to get around 5 at 39 to make the next round. And it's like, the reason it's so important to people, not because, it is also because it's been going on for so long, and
prestigious.
I was just about to say, I don't want to use the P word. I hate it. It's like, it's all we ever hear about it.
Yeah.
It's a cliche. So, but it's highly regarded, and it's been going for so long, and it's the second biggest tournament in water skiing. It's massive. And then you got to go out on this really, really hard lake, which is one of the reasons it's so hard to win, and go and run a big score. And so I think like of the 8 of us that were there, I think there was like, 2.5, a 3.5, a 4, 2 4s, and like, and so I had to get around 5, and I had been skiing well, and Ronnie Barton like just had been so awesome with me throughout the start of that year. Just I'd been going to ski with her, and we've been, she's got a lot of experience there, and it was cool because Ronnie organises that event, and so I kind of like almost reevaluated my relationship with that place. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's Ronnie's place. It's cool. I like Ronnie.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So go up there and made it through the first round, but I was so stressed. So
what did you run in the prelims?
5. So
you ran 5.
Yeah, and I should have run it, but I ran. I kind of was like, don't fall.
Were you last off the dock?
Yeah, last off the dock. It was Oh no, I wasn't. I was second last off the dock. Will was after me, and he ran 5.2, I believe. Yeah, I ran 5, and I think.
No, because you then went last off the dock in the final, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess. I can't remember.
It's
anyway.
all right. Anyway.
No, you're right. I think I was last off the dock.
Yeah.
And so but I was so stressed, and so Brooks Wilson, good mate of mine, that night was like, hey, do you come around for dinner? So I went around for dinner, and him and his wife Corey, who part of WWA, World Wakeboarding. They go and play beach football, and I'm like, oh, I'll play a bit of beach football. I'll sit at the back and be a defender. Right. And in the end, I ended up charging around. We played for an hour, and everyone was like, hey, you should probably stop. And I'm like, no. If it's so stressed, I was like, if it's good for the mind, it's good for the soul, which is good for the body.
Right.
So played some serious beach football right on the beach there at Callaway, and then the next day, went out and had a. You see Will Asher go down round 1 at 39. You're like, Will's top 3 best skier of all time.
Yeah.
Shit.
Right.
And then Thomas ran. Nevy was first off the dock.
Yeah, I was going to say Nevy first off the dock to a 41, so already big score.
To a 41, but the first off the dock at the Masters always it's less rolly. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you it doesn't. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Steve. I mean, but I don't judge when I'm there. I don't judge what the first guy gets. I judge it on the third, really.
Yeah.
You know, so you got Will half at 39, Thomas 3, and I'm like, oh, bloody hell, okay, I get 3.5 a second. I got to really ski well, you know, to win this. But my onside had been killing all weekend, and my offside, although I wasn't turning it that good, I was stable on it where I didn't think I was going to fall. So I was like, just turn really big on the onside, and then, you know, just get across. You know, kind of how we see Aaron Larkin do it sometimes. Just huge onside turns, survive. Harder as a righty because you have 3 offside turns.
Right.
But yeah, I ran through that 39, and I just and Will Bush is in the boat, and I was just like, I'm going to 3, Will. I'm going to 3, and like I'm not standing up at 2.
Yeah.
Came in 1, you know, big turn at 3 around buoy 3, and man,
you lost it.
I exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like funny enough, I found the video. They did an interview with me like straight afterwards, which was still probably 5 minutes afterwards. So I should have calmed down a little bit. And it was broadcast on the TV, and I got a hold of that somehow and downloaded it. And, you know, just the local news. And the anchor's like, wow, that guy was kind of excited, you know, because I was just like talking at 100 miles an hour, looking like I was on some serious drugs, like, you know, just mainlining adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the guy said to me, he goes, before the interview started, or I can't remember, he's like, you know, I just want to say, like he said it off camera, I've been coming here for 15 years. I've never seen anyone react like that.
You know, it's funny you say that because there's a guy that skis with us in Lake 38 who is from Georgia. And I think he has been to every master in the last 35 years or 40 years, like every single one of them. Yeah. Yeah, spectator, you know, he watches them all.
What a guy. That's what we love.
And we did make the comment, his name is David Hen, and he did make the comment that you lost your shit like you'd never seen before, which was pretty cool, you know?
And yeah, mate, I mean, I have no shame in that. Like,
no, you shouldn't.
It's, you know, I certainly wear my heart on my sleeve. If I do badly, I'm really upset about it. I'm really you know, it hurts me to do badly. And if I do well, I'm going to bloody enjoy it. Because those, I don't care what, Andy Mappel won 14 of them, right? And 6 world championships and 13 Moombas, whatever it is. But those, every time you win a Masters, that's a career highlight. And so no matter how many, you know, Andy won close to 30 of these huge, or more, 35 of these huge events. The biggest ones there are, the top 3, the so-called Grand Slams. You know, what I call them the Grand Slams of water skiing. And if you win a Masters, you can't really do much better. The world is bigger. Yeah. But the Masters is always going to be a career highlight. So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't have been happier. And it'd been a weird year for skiing for me. Like, I wasn't particularly skiing like that. I was skiing well, but kind of like, you know, it was not consistent, like very, very good average score, but not reaching high. And it was strange. So yeah, I was ecstatic. But I think that if there's one thing I really, I don't know what the word is, but I feel sad. I feel, you know, I feel sympathetic to the people that win tournaments and like do a little lame, like kind of half throw of a fist. Yeah. I'm like, God, what do you do this for? Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you do this for? Like, why you, if you can't get that huge buzz from winning, then what are you doing it for? I mean, you know, yeah, it's not like you're just, I don't know. I mean, fair enough. And maybe it's all internal, and maybe I'm just too extroverted in those moments and I show everything too much. But
no, but I think it's the testament of a lifetime dedicated to a craft, you know. I think it's super cool, you know. It's even more cool that it happens despite, as you had a chance to talk with Marcus about, the financial gains are not that huge, you know, but it's the value that it has because of what you put into it, right?
Well, it was funny that money that I got for winning Masters hit my bank account, and I was like, oh, what? I won money. I didn't think about it. I'm not kidding. I didn't think about it until I saw it in my bank account however long later. Yeah. Because I just didn't care. Yeah. I didn't care. It's like, and yes, you know, maybe for some of the tournaments it is about the money. I mean, not. I feel like, you know, the following weekend I went to Lake 38 and I won, and it's a fantastic tournament. It's a great place, but the fact that I won, you know, whatever I won in terms of money was really, I was like, great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But and it was a lesser part of it, but for the Masters, if they said to me, we're going to cancel your check, I'd be like, don't care.
Yeah.
But don't do that.
Yeah, that's mean.
But I'd be like, if I would much rather, put it this way, I would much rather win Masters, and have the cost of my hotel room, my entry fee, my rental car, you know, whatever, and lose money, than to come second and make 10 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah. It's no brainer.
I mean, not that second gets 10 grand, but
no, but even if it was,
yeah, I would. Yeah, it's a no brainer. Exactly, it's like you say. Yeah.
And then the season progressed. You won Lake 38, by the way, the weekend after.
Mm-hmm.
Three-way tie runoff with Steven and Will.
Yeah, that was. I was last off the dock there as well, and you see Steve go out and get 3 at 41. You're like, bastard, and you see Will go and get 3, and you're like, bastard. Right. And I don't know how. I mean, it was one of those things. Like I got my best score of the weekend on a runoff, and I don't know. I turned the absolute balls out of 2, and then kind of half turned 3 and skidded outside of 4 and managed to win the tournament. That was pretty cool.
So hold on. So you guys all tied with 3 at 41, and then in the runoff they did 3 again.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Like straight
off the dock, 39, 3 at 41, 39, 3 at 41.
And
that's
like,
solid.
And you kind of like, I was reading the other day about a golfer who was the nearly man. Like he was second in all the majors, but he wanted it too much. And it's funny, like whenever you go to a tournament like that, you always try and minimize it.
Yeah.
You always go, well, it doesn't matter. There's another year, and it's like psychology, just so you don't overwhelm yourself. And the same thing when I saw, like, I wanted to win that tournament, and I saw Neville go and get 3 at 41, and I saw Will go. I'm like, I don't care. Like, this tournament, like, come on, I don't care. Like, obviously I do, but you kind of go, well, they've done so well. Like, I've got to almost lower my. I can't be like, I've got to go and run a huge score, which is almost impossible for me to do straight off the dock, because otherwise you won't be able to do it. So you minimize it, and then I somehow managed to do it. I don't know. I mean, one of those weird things, but yeah, it was good. It was a good start to the season, because I'd won the first 3 events of the season. I won Jack Travers or the John Travers Grand Prix. Yeah. Then I won Masters, and then I won. Oh, I'm missing Swiss.
Yeah.
Which I came second at, and then the.
So yeah, started consistent. I mean, first, second, first.
Yep.
Pretty
and finally got a Masters.
Right.
Which was like, you know, I really would have felt, not to keep going back to it, but like if I'd have ended up, you know, age 40 and finishing pro skiing, whatever that's going to be, I'd be like, well, I should really have a Masters title. And I'm glad I do.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And then go back to Europe.
Yeah, and then I'm gearing up. I'm like, well, there's going to be 6 events in 5. Well, really 7 events in 6 weeks, because we had Europeans at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I kind of realized, well, I could not go to all of them. I could just try and, you know, just pick and choose. And some people went that route. You know, Thomas de Gasperi didn't do the first couple, whatever.
Will didn't do a few.
Will didn't. Well, I mean, most people didn't. But I mean, Will was not in Europe. I mean,
he wasn't in Europe.
I think Thomas had something else going on anyway. So not that, you know, putting any blame on him, but you know, I was like, I could not go to them, but I actually would like to. I'd like for all these tournaments to happen again, and the only way it's going to happen again is if people turn up. So you know, basically doing what you'd done.
Back to Canada 2014, what I told you, dude, you guys got. I told you and Ben, I remember clearly. I said, you guys got to show up.
You got to turn up. So I booked my flights to. You know, that was a lesson in logistics. Is, you know, suddenly book flights to go to 6 tournaments or 7 tournaments in 6 weeks, and working out, like, you know, can I get that Ryanair flight, which is like, you know, the right time, but does it put my bag on there and all that sort of rubbish. But yeah, I ended up. I went to all of them, and yeah, like I started off pretty well. You know, pretty big scores. Pigozzi just got me in the final of the first event, and he deserved it. He was skiing great. Next one I won. Then following one performance was, because it's that training. You've basically got 3 days of training.
Yeah,
that's what it'd be like to be a real athlete, like a real proper professional athlete, like football players or whatever.
Well, Wade talked about it. I can't remember if he talked about it with me or with someone else.
I was listening to that and thinking, wow, different
He
world.
had this whole system of like, Monday off, Tuesday little set.
Like back-to-backs.
Yeah, and then Wednesday, Thursday, what do you call it? Like a little peak.
Yeah.
Like a little peak on Thursday, Friday travel.
Confidence. You know, confidence boost on the Thursday. Yeah, I can see that. But like me, like I wasn't skiing that well in the week in between, so I was kind of turning up, and I wasn't really doing 41s in the week, and I'd turn up on the weekend and I'd get deep or I'd run it. So it was all a bit odd, and so I stopped. My consistency dropped for like, you know, the Spain tournament. I kind of messed up, and then I came back up for your tournament, and Will just got me in that big tailwind, and which I didn't think he'd get. He killed it, skied so well.
Yeah,
like
that was such a final.
I was insane because that's where I started to go, oh, these head-to-heads, like big tailwind. If I was gonna ski in a normal final, I would go 35 off the dock. Or no, I would make it so I had the 41 into the wind.
Yeah.
We didn't have a choice. We had to take the 41 tailwind. And I bet myself to get through at 41 and a tailwind pretty good, but you know.
Yeah, you cheered. I mean, it was a big score because the other thing was as the head-to-head final progressed, the wind kept picking
up and up.
Like there was a little bit of wind, the bracket of 8, and then bracket of 4 was windier, and then bracket of 2, the final was windy.
It was, and I mean, so run 39, and that was, you know, we weren't going to miss it, me or Will. I think I was first, and you know, we just knew that if we dropped our shoulder and gritted our teeth, we were going to run that 39.
And it's funny how you guys ran it the same way, kind of like good 1, 2, kind of hesitant, like control 3, big 4, 5, 6. You know, like it was like a mirror image. It was funny.
Yeah, I remember thinking like, that was pretty similar, but it was like we weren't going to miss that. And but then the tailwind 41, I was like, okay, you don't know what you need to get, but I also know that he needs to. Or did he need to beat me?
Yeah, he needed to beat you.
He needed to beat me, which I think you changed the rules for this year, right? The final, which I think makes sense.
Yeah,
I think it should be in a final. It should be if you know clear win, but as the rules were, he needs to beat me. Big tailwind. I'm like, you know, and you should never underestimate Will Asher, but I just knew that. That's a big score for any single skier in the world to get around 4. So I ran 3.
Right foot forward, big tailwind. You got to get out of 3. I mean,
and I ran 3 and like big S turn, awful 1, huge 2, big S turn, and I was happy. And then he goes and crushes it. I mean, you know, phenomenal skier. And you never count out Will Asher, but that was really, really, really good skiing. So like, and that's one of the tournaments where you go, like, I'd love to win it. I've won 3 of those events. Yep. I'd love to have won it, but you just go, fuck, you know, I got beat by someone that just skied really, really well, and I'm not upset about it. Like,
and there's 1 in 3 days, you know.
Yeah. That as well. So then, and I kind of skied well at Malibu. I got hurt at Malibu. I had a big crash and hit my elbow. I had this, you know, big growth, like. So I didn't ski that well. I then went to Thorpe and then broke the course record. And was really 1.5 at 9, which was really cool. And then again, Will got me. So Will got me 3 times in a week in head-to-heads. He got me, and one time I'd skied well. The next time I skied badly in France, I ran 2 and he did 3. You know, of course he's going to get it. And then here I ran a 3.5. And he hadn't got around 4 that weekend. He ran 4. It was his best score of the weekend was against me. He was on it. I don't know. I was pumping him up somehow to ski better, but so that was our European season, and then Europeans a week later in Spain. But I mean and I was really proud, you know, not to be, I mean, not even nationalistic. It would be continentalistic, I guess, but like proud of Europe to be showing the world that this is a real tour. This is the first tour we've had, because I mean. There's a week or 2 where you have, you know, Travers, and then a week later Swiss, and you have 2 weeks off, then Masters, then Lake 38. And that's great. But it's not a full-on tour. You still have that week off, which is LCQ. Yeah. But, you know, to have 6 legit pro events in a row, I felt like this is actually showing the world how to do it. Yeah. And like you say, I mean, hopefully that's going to have an effect on how it happens the rest of the world.
Well, I think it already has. Yeah. I don't know that. Well, actually, I'm gonna say it this way. I don't know that without what was going on in Europe, someone like John Travers would have taken the burden of doing a pro tournament.
He saw it could be done. Well, he probably saw you being able to do it. You know, a skier and a busy man, but like, hey, I can make this work.
Likewise with Keith. Now, obviously, it helps with Lake 38 that I ski there on a regular basis. So I
can-
might have
you can
instilled a
help
little
him.
bit of confidence in Keith to do it. But,
Yeah.
Things are arising,
Yeah.
Things are arising.
Well, and look at this year where, I mean, obviously it's not going to happen now, not to the extent that it was meant to, but it looked like it was going to be on consecutive weekends. It was going to be Masters, Lake 38, Bennett's, Malibu Open, and then go to Europe, Lacanau, France. Would it then have been yours? Maybe not
Cesena, us.
Cesena, Spain, Italy with you, and then Greece, and then England. And that's 9-10 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's across 2 continents. That is legit. And that's where we can really be taken seriously as a sport. Currently, the way it is, and not to get too controversial, but like, it's so disparate. There's no synergy. You know, and Greg, our friend from Water Ski Nation, a great guy, was putting together a European water ski tour, the EWT, and it's a shame that's probably not going to be done in the form that at least he wanted to this year. We'll see how it all ends up, but that will rise again. But we have disparate 8 tournaments a year with no communication or organization between any of the tournaments, and the only thing that links it is an elite list, which is on
an obscure website that only me and you know about.
Obscure website, which it looks like it was made in 2001 because it probably was. And anyone that looks at it is not going to take us seriously.
Yeah.
And again, don't want to be critical. A lot of people doing this on their own time and stuff. But like, if we want the sport to grow, we need to make the elite list like, you want to be able to see it printed somewhere and go, that looks great.
Yeah.
And ultimately no one really knows about the elite list except for the skiers who actually ski it.
Yeah.
Because they want to, and the only thing that the elite list is for, I said that I wanted to win it last year, but realistically, no one.
It's bragging rights.
It's bragging rights, but it's not even that. If you come second or third or fourth or around there in the elite list, no one cares. The magic number is 7, and the only reason that people are most motivated to go to these elite point tournaments really is to qualify for Masters. So you spend your whole year trying to get in the top 7, and then you get your invite to Masters, which is fantastic, and that's a thing that everyone should want to do, and it is awesome to go to the Masters. But the way that like that list is just like it's cut off on the 31st of December and then it just carries on rolling. No one really cares about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. You wouldn't have that in Formula One where like Lewis Hamilton is, trying his whole year to kind of to be a really good, to win individual Grand Prix and then kind of going at the end of the year, it doesn't matter if I'm where I am on that list. No, he wants to be Formula One world champion. The same thing in surfing. These guys, they don't go to individual tournaments and want to win them. Of course, that's a big deal. But they want it for points for the list.
Yep.
And honestly, I would bet that if you ask, a John Florence or Medina or in surfing or Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc or Max Verstappen, would they rather win 3 out of 15 races, or would they rather come and come second in the championship? Or would they rather come second, not win a single race, second in 15 races in a row and be world champion? They want to be the world champion. They want to be the one that's recognized. Yes, it would be a bit of a weird situation to not have won a race, but they would rather come second and not be the overall best one for the year.
Yeah.
So we need to revolutionize the elite list and do better and have it better organized, publicized and developed, than it is right now.
Yeah. And I think what Greg has in mind, again, I want to use the present tense because it's going to happen. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. But the idea of like a tour with its own points and that there's a consequence to those points, verbally, meaning European Tour champ, financially, you get a bonus.
Yeah.
That's important.
And it's finite for that year.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's going to be that'll be a 6-week, hopefully a 10-week series, maybe 15-week series, where there's a beginning and then all the tournaments, and then a conclusion, and then that's, you know, and you can go, right, during this tour, which took, you know, X amount of weeks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this guy got a bonus of 5 million and 4 million, you know, I mean, like, whatever it is.
Of course, the numbers are a bit different.
That would be ideal. But like, but you know, this guy won the watch.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he got the you know, whatever the watch sponsor might be, or whatever it, you know.
And then it's easy to follow. So, you know, like passionate water skier from whatever Canada can watch the European Tour and follow the scores and go, Freddie got second in this fourth stop, but he's still leading the tour.
But the guy that's winning the tour came fourth, so he's actually caught up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So and that's where we have a big advantage versus the past, is we have people, great people who are motivated to have, so, you know, talked about Vince Stadelbauer and Tony Lightfoot and John Waldron, like these guys who are realistically, they're selflessly giving up their time to go to all these tournaments. And
by the time you this will be released, the people listening to the podcast would have heard from them.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, no one really has more respect from me than those guys, because they're making water skiing accessible, and which is, you know, my dream is that this could be a sport that's really big, and I think what those guys are doing will lay the foundations and maybe bring it into that.
Yeah.
But we have guys that are running fantastic webcasts, you know, and there's other guys that are doing webcasts well also, you know. Yeah. But those guys, you know, they're doing probably the best one. And then you've got people like Greg who are like trying to just, you know, I mean, I always call him the Bernie Eccleston of water skiing. You know, he's the guy that's going to bring it all together and bring us to a new level. And that's really exciting, and then we can promote it through social media and across the internet, and then we can have a produced webcast, which then can be maybe cut down into a program which can be put on YouTube or whatever, and then we have a framing device, which is this European tour. I mean, it's a
brilliant idea.
There's a lot going for this situation, we just need to get people along. Now, my ultimate dream would be to, you know, get some finance to have a Drive to Survive Formula One style camera crew and video production deal where they can produce a little series of each event. Yeah. You know, I don't know if you've seen that Formula One thing, but
I saw bits of it. Yeah,
it's worth the watch, man. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, like the way that it's drawn me into Formula One more. I mean, I was always kind of watching it and following, but it's so much more interesting than I thought it was, just through seeing the personalities. And we sell this sport on personality, right?
Yeah.
Or any sport. You don't watch tennis because, that guy hits the ball better than that guy. It's, Roger Federer, he's the smooth guy. There's Nadal, he's the scrapper. There's Djokovic, the big bandy-legged weirdo, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And you kind of get into that, like, Federer's so nice. And it's like, you need to have accessibility and people to kind of take something. Well, I like that guy because of this. Ultimately, we're out there on the water, you know, very far away from any possible spectator, which there isn't many. Yeah. And there's the guy with the yellow hair, and there's the guy with the brown hair, and there's the guy with, you know,
crashes 2-4, and this guy
But you need to be able
he needs to prove himself, and these guys, you can create infinite storylines.
And we have the weirdos to do it. Like not being funny, but like, I mean, and you know, I would be accused of being exactly the same as this. You look at the top 10 on the world ranking list for slalom. Everyone's a bit bloody weird.
You got characters. You got
characters, you know, and so you put that all in together, and the rivalries. Sport is entertaining, not just for the actual act; it's for the whole deal around it, and the motivations and the frustrations and the anger.
Yeah,
it's really that we have that, and hopefully we can harness that. Because, I mean, there's opportunity. Now, of course, on the other hand, every other sport has the same opportunity.
Yeah, of course.
So we've got, you know, with the opportunity, there's more competition. But if we do it well, and you know, we're not going to get that from our international federation.
No.
Or unlikely. I mean, you know, new management, blah, 2 years.
No, we won't. Freddie, we won't.
Well, okay, I'm trying to be fair, but for once.
No, but it goes back to what we said about, you know, stay with the Formula One example. You know, like, it's not the job of the institutional federation that governs motorsports to promote a professional tour of drivers.
You're right. Because you have the FIA.
Exactly. We spoke about this before.
The FIA versus Formula One itself, and that's where Bernie Eccleston really took the drivers.
Like, to me personally, became from a frustration and upsetting with, something like the federations or the World Federation not to do enough to promote a pro tour, to then realize that it's unfair for me to have that expectation. That's not the institution that is going to do that. So it's a shift in mindset, honestly.
Yeah, I really agree with you. So we shouldn't really, and honestly, we can't rely on them to put a world championships, on a place that's, I'm going on the record here and saying it, I mean, like on a place that's suitable for water skiing.
Yeah.
So, let's not follow their lead to make water skiing go huge. But we have, there's people involved and actually quite well linked people, if these guys all put it together, we can do this. But it is about coordination and communication. And it's not about trying, I'm going to run. If you had said, I'm going to run the single best event and everyone else, their event can suck it.
Right.
That wasn't your motivation for a second when you put on the San Gervasio Pro-Am, which is now, top 5 biggest tournaments of the year.
Yeah.
In terms of where we want to go and win.
Yeah.
Your aim was, let's put it in the calendar and let's all rise up together. And yeah, you want to put on a great tournament, and you do, but you don't want to. You'd never hear you go, oh yeah, my tournament's better than this one because of X, Y, and Z. You want them all to be great.
Yep.
Let's all be wonderful together, and and what's cool, I hear from you, and I hear from John in the UK and George in Greece, who was gonna put on a pro tournament and hopefully will, that you're all communicating. That, you and Geraldine and George and
Ricardo. There's been a lot of communication lately, as of trying to all coordinate to the best of our ability. Because when I started, even before what you said, when I started, I was just hoping that someone else would do the same thing. And that's why I started. Yeah. Like nobody was doing them. And I was lucky enough that I did a couple of them. I got to do Princess, I got to do Alizé Cup. So I knew that there were there. I skied them. And then for a few years, nothing was there, It's from
2011, that last Princess Pro-Am. I mean, I guess it was only 3 years, but it seemed like a long 3 years.
It seemed like a long 3 years.
It was. I was just like, there's no way there's going to be, any pro tournaments in Europe, and it took you to do it, and then look what happened.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it began even before. Like, let's hope that all of us do good tournaments, and it's like, let's hope that someone does a tournament. Yeah, and then it became that.
And you just hear every year, you're like, like people want to do more and more. And when I heard that Thought wasn't going to do one this year, John wasn't going to do one this year, and then in the end, he changed his mind, and he had to register late, because he realized that they're going to do another tour, and I want to be part of that. So and I was so happy that when that, because I want, from a nationalistic point of view, I mean I'm proud of skiing at Thought pretty much my whole life.
Yep.
I was there till I was, I'd worked there till I was 24. And I want there to be a pro event there, and so I was so happy when there was one confirmed to be there, and so England's part of this amazing tour. You want it to be a part of something successful.
For sure.
And sadly, maybe it ain't going to happen, but it's funny world. We don't know where things are, but
we'll rise. I mean, this year is going to be hard for everyone and everything, and let's face it, skiing is not the most pressing and important thing in this big scheme of things, but we'll come back. We'll come back.
Yeah. Well, we've got motivated people, and I know that you'll put on your event. If there's any any small chance it'll happen.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and that's why we decided to cancel it, because we wanted to have a almost certain chance of doing next year.
Yeah. No point doing it half-assed this year and then
risk the following years, right? So it was a tough decision, and I know it's a tough decision that other organizers had to make, but I think ultimately it was the right one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. We'll see where we are, but I mean, as this hopefully doesn't stop it in its tracks, but this acceleration towards having more and more events. I mean, if we can have, 9 weeks in a row, I think I counted 9 or 10 in a row. That could be the most. Probably is the most since the 90s.
Oh yeah.
And I would say that's very exciting. Whereas everyone's kind of doom and gloom. Oh well, water skiing's dying. We see that all the ski shops in America are going, well, I'm selling more and more skis, and that's as wakeboarding is dropping off a little bit.
Yeah.
Wake surfing's coming back in, but I think also people are coming away from wake surfing going, well, I don't want to wakeboard because that's maybe a bit dangerous, but I want to do something that's fun and I can get speed on. There is growth in water skiing. There is a lot of pessimism in the world, but like you look at there's some optimism to do with water skiing, and hopefully that will continue. And if we can, as pros, I mean, part of our job is to inspire. I'm sure that my sponsors, like, if I can through my very meager social media following or whatever, inspire people to water ski a little bit more, they'd be like, that's maybe money well spent because we've increased the sport.
Yeah.
And then the tournaments that you put on, you're bringing people to come and watch and to participate. And
the podcast, man.
Podcast, well, there you go.
Oh my God.
But that's it.
I did not expect people emailing me and say, hey, I haven't skied in 10 years. I stumbled upon this thing. It got me stoked. Now I'm skiing again.
That's awesome.
That's the best that I could possibly hope for, Dude, I'll give you, I invite this to other guests, but how long do you think we've been going? Don't look at your watch.
Probably quite a while. We took, 2 breaks?
But actual time of interviewing?
3 hours, 3.5 hours?
4 hours, 15 minutes, and 2 seconds.
That's quite a lot. That's quite a lot. I know I've been rabbiting on a little bit, but that is quite a lot.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. Listen, why don't you take, an opportunity? I know you've been outspoken in thanking a lot of people and sponsors that, helped you along the way. If you want to just take a moment to, give some shout-outs.
Shout-outs. Okay. Well, I hate these because I'm always going to miss someone, and then, I never want anyone to feel that I'm not grateful, because there are so many people that I am grateful to. But yeah, mum and dad, who, I don't need to say anything more about that. And the coaches I've had over the years, John was very instrumental. John Battleday, amazing skier himself, and very instrumental, especially through till my late teens, and then kind of from then. Steve Glanfield, unbelievably helpful recently. Dimitri Karounis, the guy in Greece who I ski with all the time, every opportunity, and he's. I'm hoping that despite all of this stuff, I'm going to be able to go see him this year, because I love Portahelly, and I love being there. And Ronnie Barton more recently, and then I don't know. I could go on for hours. It's a tricky one. Travis, who's my boss, and has me here. Manon, who's always looking after me and looking out for me, and I could go for days, but I feel like it would almost be better if I stopped, because I will inevitably forget someone, and then I'll feel bad about it. So everyone knows that. I hope everyone knows that I'm grateful, because I really am grateful to so many.
Good. Well, Freddie, I've been wanting to do this for a while, as you know, and I know you have too, and I'm glad that you've been excited about the podcast and what's coming out of this and wanting to be part of it. Yeah. To me, that's exciting. Thank you. Really. Thank
you. Well, I think probably on behalf of the water ski community, everyone should be happy about this and grateful for this, because, we've talked about how we've many times talked about how water skiing is not documented, and there's not that sort of there's no one going to be able to look back at a history of water skiing, because it's not there. So I think this is such a great thing to be able to do, and to get the interviews and to get the perspectives of the greats like Wade Cox and Will Asher, and then the tournament organisers and the photographers like Thomas, and to get all the perspective. That's so good, and I think that this is about as positive thing as there is in water skiing right now, which is really, really cool. So thank you for doing it, and thank you for having me involved. I hope I've made some sense.
You made some. You made some sense.
A little bit.
We'll leave it to the listeners to make sense of the rest.
Right. Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Oh, that was fun. That was great.
you.